You're last.
This is the conference committee on the T-bill. Is May 22nd, Friday. And I think the first thing that we would like to talk about is there's been some work on the bonding proposals.
Good morning. Yes, Senator Westman, thank you. I hope that everybody's received the email or has a copy of it there on the language sort of alternatives to the section 1314. Certainly trying to get at the main issues in a way that perhaps is a little bit less intensive for the agency. I don't have that both right in front of me on the both pieces. I could ask if maybe Damon could walk through it and we can
Sure
go from there. The House.
Actually, this is, an attempt not to burden the administration, but at the same time trying to accomplish your goal with the information that, to get the analysis that we need to see, what avenue is best moving forward, whether it's bonding or using pay-as-you-go money and payments.
Sure, I would say we appreciate the effort.
So what this would require is, in lieu of the two sections that were in the Senate proposal, it would provide for a report from the agency on or after February 1st, 2027, regarding projects that are not proposed in the fiscal year 2028 transportation program that are both priority projects that are eligible to be funded with the proceeds from transportation infrastructure bonds, and that could be advanced to construction in the FY28 transportation program if transportation infrastructure bonds were authorized by the General Assembly. The report would include an analysis comparing the present value of the estimated cost to pay for the projects with transportation infrastructure bonds versus paying for them on a pay-as-you-go basis. A comparison of their schedules if funded with bonds or on a pay-as-you-go basis, a review of historic transportation infrastructure bond usage, including debt service costs, and a projection of future debt service costs and of the revenues necessary to pay the debt service. So the first two of those items are identical to what was in the Senate. The third and the fourth item are new items that the House added. So
Okay, so I'll go next. So I appreciate the work, definitely, because this is a way forward. And it is not intended to be a burden to the
For me, I wasn't saying, I was just saying, not likely it'd be two books that could have that.
Yeah. No, I understand that. So I would like to hear from JFO, but in the meantime, my understanding of the February 1 date is that it's after the official budget comes out. And then there will be a separate listing of projects. And the two lists do not overlap, is my understanding. That's to me, that'll be a challenge. It's certainly not insurmountable, and we'll be expecting it. The intent eventually is that that bonding would be one of our sources, and so it would be part of the white book, and the agency could opine on which type of funding would be more appropriate for different projects. The one thing I would like if the agency could just consider it, but it doesn't even need to be in the bill, but just consider it as you're going forward, is just, we talk about the present value of the cost. We don't, and I know it's hard, but we don't talk about the value of having whatever it is, like bridge, having the bridge 10 years before, 10 years earlier. There's a significant benefit to the community, to economic development, to the folks who live there. it's really hard to estimate those benefits, but that really is what we're weighing. So, that's really the only comment I have. One other thing is, I want to make sure that we could still implement in 2028. And I believe we can. So that part of the original proposal is still the same. Oh, great.
No.
I just want to make sure Jeff was. If you have any comments or questions.
I sent you an email.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure you're fine.
I would just mention, looking over at the joint fiscal office, if the intent is to do bonding in FY 28, we would also have to then pay for bonding in FY 28. If the agency puts forward a budget that doesn't include bonding, they likely won't have enough money to then pay for the bonding that you all might decide to do later. So there'd be a discussion that would have to have next year, depending on the budget that they present and how you all want to go, how you then pay for that delta, essentially. That's the only thing I mentioned. The rest of it, I think, works.
Yeah, and Chris, from fiscal, I guess, add on to what Logan said. I mean, I think from a fiscal perspective, what is being asked of in this report is very similar to what the Senate had put forth in its bill. I think it's the relevant questions that the legislature will want to consider as part of this. The only things that jumped out on my read are less about, the fiscal aspects of it and more about budget mechanics and timelines. And I think the on or after February 127 language is unusual. I don't know what that means, quite frankly, when the report would come due. Typically the legislature, when you commission a report, you say on or before rather than on or after. So I would suggest to you all that you might think about tweaking that, or maybe making the deadline to be when the 28 white book is presented, which is in January. I'm not suggesting version 1 and version 2 of the white book, but perhaps the report is due at that time. And I would also suggest, again, this is just budget timelines, that in sub 2, where it says could be advanced to construction in the fiscal year 2028 transportation program, you might want to also say or fiscal year 2029 transportation program, because if this report is highlighting projects that could have advanced if bonding was in place, it might also be relevant for you all to think about if you went and you set the mechanics up during the FY 28 cycle to tee you up for next year's budget. It just might give you a little more flexibility and latitude in your decision-making process. Because if if there's something that's not in the 28 book and that's what's coming in, like, I'm not entirely sure what the legislature would do with this information relative to FY 28. It might help inform how you tee up the subsequent year as well.
So you're not suggesting that we would just look at 2029, but we would look at 2029 in addition to 2028?
Correct.
Okay.
So how would you feel if this said was presented in conjunction with the budget piece?
I think that might be a little bit of heartburn. I think my recommendation is just honor before. I think the way I would look at this is, typically they present the white book and then 2 or 3 weeks later, they present the policy piece, and maybe in conjunction when they present the policy piece, the T-bill, they can give us this information within that, documentation. So that would be honored for, February 1st. Because that typically comes after, the T-bill.
So maybe-
is presented.
So maybe we can do honor before instead of honor after.
Correct. Yeah.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And how about propose for state fiscal year 28 and 29? Because I get what he's saying, we roll it over and our books are all done. This book is done going out to 2030. So how would we?
Can I make a suggestion? Or did,
No.
it's a really, it's a different way of looking at this. So, so they're gonna give us projects that are not proposed in the next budget. And it doesn't mean those wouldn't be worthy projects. And the projects that are in the budget, some of them would be eligible for TIP funding. So next year's transportation committees would have lots of choices, more choices than we have now, because we could use the TIP funding for things that are in the white book.
Correct.
And so we would probably be able to know which ones would be eligible, but it would be helpful if the agency just in the white book had a little star or something, for items that would be eligible. So we would be able to use TIP funding instead of just regular transportation funds, and use the regular transportation funds for other things if necessary. We would have a lot more choices, not a lot more, but some
flexibility.
Flexibility and funding. So I think it's great to okay, I'll stop.
Trying to figure out language.
So I don't think we need more language is what I'm thinking.
No, I do hear Chris when he says, it's, not, the 28 and 29, so some way to finesse that so it reflected both. Not sure how I would put in here, they put a star in point.
No, and I didn't propose that.
And Senator Westman, just to be clear, I was talking specifically about line 13 about putting in the 29 reference. So, so everybody's on the same page.
Oh, so we could even just say advance to construction in fiscal 2028 or other years. I mean, there might be things that
They might
it would
be,
really be nice to have like a 10-year plan.
yeah, I mean, they might be in the white book and now they're gonna move forward.
Okay.
So I would say the 10-year plan would be a bigger lift.
Oh,
There's a lot of-
I'm not
There's
proposing
the whole
this.
chapter that needs to be
Yeah.
revised.
I'm just saying that it's,
29?
yeah.
28 and 29 in line 13.
Yeah.
Done.
Is it an and or an or? Doesn't matter.
Fiscal year 2028 or 2029 transportation program.
We are all right with that, Chair Walker?
I ain't, oops, make sure I got that on. I believe we are, and I appreciate, I know everybody takes their pieces in different ways, but Senator Harrison, I don't recall in our committee, we really talk about the impact on the public for projects that aren't done, that they have to wait for years and years and years. I may be, a bit naive on that, but we just haven't covered it and thought of it that way in our committee or talked about it, because that is, out of all of what we talked about, that's the part that stuck with me the most here is how many of our communities wait so long with a horrible scenario because we can't get to it. And I don't think we've talked enough about that in our committee. So of the discussion, I particularly appreciate that piece, and I'm gonna have to think about how we bring that forward in our committee.
Great, thank you.
And I think on the same thing as the resiliency, there's, upgrades to, storms and whatnot. I think that this could move some of that forward. And there are potential large savings by doing that.
Right, and economic development, there's a bridge in Fellows Falls that's getting postponed, and there's a development that wants to go on the other side of the bridge. They're holding off, so it's.
Am I correct in saying this could be a new policy going forward, that you look a couple of years ahead at, potential bonding?
Could be. We'll see how it goes here.
Yeah.
So I think if
I will say that when you mentioned that I have a community that's waited 15 years, and they put a bailing bridge on the road that goes to the town clerk's office. It doesn't have fire department access. We have a lot of projects that aren't done. That's all. So I think that the last piece in this, the is the issue of MBUF and vehicle miles traveled.
Correct.
And I think the concern, we hear your concern about not wanting to move ahead. The concern from this side of the table would be anything that we do is going to take years and will take a lot of work to get there. And we do have the federal grant, and the agency is working on contracts with vendors. And how would we create a comfort level with the vendors? They need some sort of an indication that in the future we might consider doing this. How do we get the information? How do we in that process give the vendor the comfort level to be able to get us back the information in a year or 2 years that would allow us the choice to move ahead if we choose that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two pieces to it, right? Moving forward with battery electric vehicles, that vendors now got to come up with the system to look at the mileage and apply different ways of looking at the mileage, you know, when you buy the vehicle, when it gets registered, when it gets inspected. So it can be a little confusing. Come up with the mileage, then you can assess that amount. And then depending on how the payments get done. So that whole piece just has to be accomplished just for battery electric vehicles. Then if we bring in, just say, hybrid plugins, that piece now has all the battery electric vehicle complications and ways to solve it, which I think can be done. Then you have that piece of credit for gas tax paid, and you have to apply that. So there's I see it as like two chunks of work that have to be done if in some future all vehicles are assessed with mileage-based use.
How would we get that information to be able to assess it from a legislative standpoint to be able to move ahead if we don't have something and I'm just opposed to even getting the information.
it's not so much opposed to it, it's just where, it just comes back with the first in the nation, bids and, those, we wouldn't be the first that things would change along the way where, the contract wouldn't state
Well,
that, we're doing X, Y,
we
and
might
Z.
be the first in the nation to get information,
Yeah.
but for us to even make a judgment of whether or not we wanted to move ahead in the future, we need information.
And those
Yeah.
are from Napies.
And
No, because the EVs are not doing the gas tax.
What's that?
You're not doing the gas.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But if you don't have the plug-in hybrids.
Yeah.
You don't get that extra information about what you're doing, people are buying.
Yeah, maybe other states will come along, we can get from that. I think, before we probably really delve into this, I think we probably, because we haven't even talked about the policy differences underlying. You had different payment options, we had but I think we can get those and then we can figure out what's gonna be included.
I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
what's worth us working on from the broad sense in it. I think we're open to talk about less payment options. Those payment options came to us from the agencies themselves. And they developed those and their pieces. I think everybody around the table would say it's ambitious. And the more important piece to us is we have a contractor. We're going to contract with that contractor to do the work. That contract is going to be paid for with the federal grant that's out there. We have firm deadlines in place that say this would go into place. If we didn't do that, and we said that, but we have to give the contractor some comfort level that there's a move within the legislature to want the information, and what would it look like? What information would we need to be able to do this? Is that something that you would, and not have it mandatory that it go into place? Is that something that you would consider? You know, we're just trying
I
to figure out whether,
I think we-
if there's any room to move it all on this issue.
I mean, I think from our side, we're pretty firm on just having EVs, you know, if you wanna have language like you've had, I don't have the language in front of me, but sort of, you know, look at it, you know, come back to us like, you know, we did for the pleasure cars. You know, throw it into that section, so I think there was language for recommendations maybe down the road in pleasure cars, I think that was amended for sign on the floor or finance or something like that. I think there was a section in there, but we're firm in the fact that the EVs are a good place to start. If you just want to look at other things, you know, give us the information, nothing binding, you know, just more data driven, saying, hey, like we would be open to that, but we are. I don't want to speak for everybody, but
Yeah.
I think we're.
I don't think that would really slow up the timeline either.
Yeah.
You know, in another year, you'd get something under your belt. And there is another piece that is, it gets very confusing. And with people out there, when you start saying, hey, you're gonna pay a mileage-based user fee, but don't worry about it, we're gonna credit you. You know, it's gonna take a little while. I think with EVs and at some point plug-in hybrids, they're already paying an extra fee. So they've got, they're a little closer now, you know, so, and I think, we all see this in the long term. This is a funding source, a much fairer funding source, because it's gonna take out your fuel efficiency piece. So I think that it can be sold to a lot of people. When you find out, hey, it isn't necessarily going to be based on your fuel efficiency, it's going to be based on the impact to roads. So,
Yeah, so that's a great point, and part of the next step, which other states have done, is survey folks and get information from the public about different options. And I think that's important as we move forward, that the public understand what we're doing and we understand what they want. And it's been very effective. I don't remember which state it was. It was one of those, it wasn't Hawaii, but they really did a great job of connecting to the public and hearing back and then changing things. So I think without something to give to the public to say, this is what we're contemplating, this is what we're thinking about, we wouldn't get as good data back from them.
And it's part of all the work that you need to lay the groundwork to get this all started, to at least have the discussion about putting something in place. Just from a high level, if we don't have that kind of information, are we shorting ourselves?
Yeah, and
I would,
appreciate that, but I just like to add, I mean, I think this all comes down to revenue. We're talking about revenue to make our transportation whole. And I think an avenue that we can explore, you know, I'll just bring it up, is that the charging stations, you know, I look at those as gas pumps. 6% sales tax is going to the general fund. Why is that?
Education fund,
What's that?
education.
Well, I know, I know, but I'm saying.
That's where the 6%.
No, I know that, but it's a theoretical question. Why is that going to the general fund? That, even those are gas pumps. So would you guys be open for consideration for the funding to be, you know, directed towards, you know, the transportation fund? you know, let's look at that, you know. You know, I know it's not,
That's-
you know, 50 million is probably peanuts. These things are
It's not,
growing like.
it's
weeds.
not, it's not neither of our bills.
What's that?
It's not in either one of our bills on this.
No, it's
Is
a net.
that
to-
is that a proposal from, that house to?
It very well
Again,
could be.
You want to study it or do you want to?
No, to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if this was to move forward, I'm prepared to have a language.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know if all the charging stations are even charging it, or they could be double.
Well, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you're gonna have the probate party, but my point is that upward revenue source, and it's gonna continue to grow. And once it gets up here, it's gonna be hard to on the heck from the general fund.
Right.
And it's worthwhile to look at. So if that can ease your concerns on, well, we're not doing hybrids. This could be an interim, or not an interim, so on a step to sort of recoup some money. And like I said, I'm prepared. I know on our side for leadership, everybody is willing to present this. If that helps.
I think that's helpful. Good,
So
I think.
I think that I want to make sure the House position is clear on, you talked about steps forward. We believe that going to battery electric vehicles is a significant step forward and delivering on the commitment that we've made in the last several years, T-bill, to put mileage-based user fee on battery electric vehicles, period. That is a huge step forward. And moving to the next level of vehicles is a policy shift beyond what we have committed for several years. And it may be the interest of some portions of the legislature and the Senate Transportation, but that's not where we are at this point. I am not concerned about the pressure related to a vendor that I am about the commitments that we made more to the people of Vermont in the last T-bill, and to not get too far over our skis. I want to deliver on what we promised. We want to deliver on what we committed. That's the House position. The vendor is not relevant to me at this point to us. They're going to have to do the work. They're going to learn as the process goes. We made a commitment to this step. We're not going over our skis too far on that piece. And we're pretty clear that this incremental progress, if there's a survey and studies that want to be done, we're on board with that, but we are really only prepared to go as far as we've committed in the last several years T-bill for battery electric vehicles, implementation of that, and we will certainly be willing to move forward in future T-bills discussions on where we should go. But for now, and for the step we've promised, and for the administration where we're at, that's where we are. We're not going beyond our skis, and we're not concerned about the vendors, concerned as much as we are in the commitment to the police, to the people of Vermont on what we've committed. We're going to charge on battery electric vehicles, and we should be doing it January 1st, 2027.
Would you support still keeping the language in there about moving to plug-in hybrids in 31 or 29? I think we said is where it is now, but not having it actually happen. So getting the information.
Intention in there, language.
Yeah, well, and also the agency moved towards that, but then it would require the legislature to add it.
I think study and review are words that we'd be interested in, but
Yeah.
information gathering, as you've mentioned, and study, and directing the agency to continue to look at options we'll have for other fuel source vehicles. But
I think the concern, how we do this whole gas tax thing, so if they spend some time like giving a clear picture, like this is how it works, here's what the customer experience would be.
Here's how the public thinks.
Yeah, here's what the outreach is done.
I think at this point, because we have a conference committee coming up, all it, for right now, we're meeting at 1:15. Do you want to try to get back together at 12:30?
All right.
two of us will be here.
Yeah.
So if you will.
It'll be 11:30 for you.
Institutions. But do you have institutions?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it, so are you looking for a time this afternoon?
I was looking for a time for us to connect again.
Would 1:30 work?
We're meeting after that on the budget at one.
Oh.
Oh, but it could be like short, it could be, 1:45.
Why don't we try to see if we can,
We can work something out.
Yeah.
We'll to be determined, we'll just, I don't know if we can come up with a time now, but we'll figure out.
hey, we'll circle back around.
Yeah.
And okay, there's